we go, let's get those wheels out on the road. It may get dusty, but that's the way she goes. We'll build some greasy old cars and drink our AGD. Hey, don't you know, it's partly built.
Okay, so I know you're seeing this at the beginning of the video, but really we're on day 4 here. I just want to preface this right now. There's a lot of repetitive time lapse in this video. There's a lot of repetitive work, a lot of cutting, a lot of grinding, a lot of math, a lot of head scratching, and sadly, not a lot of beer drinking. So bear with me, guys. It's a dry video, but I promise you we're working towards an awesome end goal here. And I guess if you want to see that, you'll either have to watch to the end or catch up in the next video, but let's get to the action. Well guys, welcome back to the shop. I'm just going to give you a little update on some of the little things I've been tinkering away on here. There's not too much, but I'll show you what I got. So I'm not sure how much I've shown already, but move some stuff out of the way here. Got a cheap Amazon air cleaner that will actually fit around my distributor because my distributor is so tall I can't fit my 14-inch round air cleaner that I have had for 20 years on there because it's drop base and I'd have to have a huge amount of spacers to fit it, so it's just not worth it. But anyway, got the air cleaner on. I did run power to my coil through the factory wiring harness, and looks like the coil power wire factory is resisted on the cab side of the wiring, so I'll probably, once it comes through the cab, I'll just tie it into my PDM from there and bypass the factory wiring, because I do have 2 extra ignition outputs on the PDM, and that powers the coil on the distributor and the alternator. And this is the factory alternator off my old red Chevy. I just swapped the pulley out with the one I had on the factory distributor, or factory alternator, and made a little bracket to swing it out of the way a little farther. And then I wired up the 2-wire plug here. One goes to keyed ignition and the other one is actually wired back into my factory dash charge light. So we'll have to make sure that it actually works. If it doesn't want to charge, I just have to take this wire and just run it back to full-time hot here, and the alternator should charge at that point. So the alternator is all ready to go, other than I need a longer belt because this one's a little bit short. But yeah, I think at this point, if I ever see a flywheel, then I can keep going with stuff because I've got my clutch here and everything. But the flywheel I ordered still hasn't been shipped, and they won't let me cancel the order because it's too close to delivery date, even though I tried to cancel it a week and a half ago and it still hasn't shipped. So I think I might just go out. There's a guy who lives near me who has a 4-wheel drive truck. He said I can have the rear sump pan, pickup tube, the flywheel, and I'm going to try and get the clutch from him as well, just in case. But I can have that all for $100. I just got to pull it all myself, so that's not a big deal. Should be alright. The other thing I did is I measured the overall length of my transmission from the output seal to the front of the bell housing, and it is like a 1/4 inch different than my automatic that I pulled off, because I had to measure the automatic for the guy that bought it because he needed the dimensions to see if it would work for him. So hopefully I don't even have to modify my drive shaft. That would be excellent. I did get 2 new U-joints for it, so once we get this set in the car and I make sure that the drive shaft is the right length, then I can assemble it and it's good to go. Basically, I'm just waiting now for a flywheel so I can make sure that my clutch, I have 2 different pressure plates. They're a little bit different bolt pattern and size. One's a 10-inch, one's an 11-inch. And then I have a good friction disc. They're both set up for the same size friction disc. I have the friction disc that actually fits this input off of Steven's truck when we had it on there. So I'm ready, once I get a flywheel, to double check my stick out of my slave and make sure everything fits and everything's copacetic. And if it is, this thing's ready to go to Josh's. It's ready to drop in into the car. I'm really excited about that. I still haven't finished up by mounting nitrous solenoids or anything. I gotta pull them off the Beetle. I don't know if I'm going to run nitrous this year or not. I just like to keep the plate in there because it makes a nice spacer for this intake manifold, because it's stock intake, it's got the 4 small holes in it, and just kind of I'm kind of using that nitrous plate as a carb spacer to kind of help, because apparently the throttle body EFIs prefer an open plenum intake, or at least to notch your dual plane. So we'll see how well it works. I mean, I'd love in the future to put different heads, cam, and intake on this thing, but for now we're trying to keep it budget, even though I'm like $4,000 into this whole kit and caboodle, and I was hoping to do the whole thing under 1,500 bucks. I mean, the fuel injection system alone is 1,500 bucks by the time I got the in-tank pump and the PDM and everything, so I blew my budget way out of the water. So I'm still trying to do things as cheap as possible, but it's getting tough. So I do have all that nitrous stuff on Josh's Beetle, and Josh doesn't care if I grab it all, because we'd like to put a turbo on that thing anyway. And I mean, I do happen to have a brand new turbo sitting on my shelf, so maybe I'll make a swap with him, because he did buy that nitrous stuff from Brett. But I gotta grab the solenoids, and then I'll make mounts and put the solenoids on. Then I can plumb the fuel line to the fuel solenoid. I can wire up the nitrous solenoids, and I can deal with that all later. But if I could only get a flywheel, I could really start to make some measurable progress on this thing. Josh, I talked to him the other day. We're going to try and do some evenings working on the frame, because he's been so busy and I've been so busy. So hopefully with this rain, we get a day or two this week where we can roll the frame into his shop after work, and we can get the rails replaced and start doing the front suspension. Honestly, at this point, I could probably start doing some of it without him. He's trained and licensed to do frame repairs, so it'd be nice to, you know, have someone who's qualified to do the work. But yeah, not really waiting on anything else other than the flywheel right now. So I think next thing you should see is hopefully us starting to work on the frame. So I'll catch you there. Welcome back. We're getting to work on the frame here. We're getting it jacked up. For some reason, Josh noticed there's a lot of frame twist here. I don't get it. These frame rails are in such good shape. I mean, there's no bottom to them anywhere here or over there. But we're getting it jacked up, getting it on stands. We're going to try and level it as best we can, and then we'll start doing one frame rail at a time, and then we'll tackle the front suspension after. Alright, so frame rail number 1 is off. Back doesn't look too bad, it's nice steel. There was a large mouse nest in this one, and this is pretty thin down here, so we'll have to replate the bottom once we get the new rails in. But I think the new rails are going to be slightly taller anyway, because we're using 2 pieces of square tubing and welding them in the middle, like seam welding them. It'll be a lot stronger than that old stuff was, plus it's thicker. Because what's that, 1/8 wall, Josh? Yeah, so we got 1/8 wall, 2.5 square tubing. So we'll have to cut the bottom here anyway and change it to be able to plate into the bottom of the frame anyway. But this is going to be way stronger overall. Probably a lot heavier, but that's, at the end of the day, it's a 4,000 pound car. What's another 20 pounds of steel, right? Okay, so we cleaned up both pockets and we cut the top half of the rail roughly to size. We'll have to do a little bit of messing around. There's a second lip in here. Oh, it fits. Never mind. I cut good. It fits nice. So we'll kind of get that in place, kind of square it as best we can, and we'll tack it up, and then we'll figure out the bottom rail. Okay, here we go. So Josh has got it mostly welded in. Got a few welds to go. We're just letting the welder cool down a bit. We blew the breaker once already. But this is so much heavier and stronger than what it had. And it looks fantastic. So we do, once we're done welding it, we do have one hole to put right here for just a body bumper. The body literally just sits on it. And other than that, there's nothing we have to do to the rail for extra holes. It's got a bunch of lightning holes on the other side. We're not going to do that. We're going to leave the bottom until we put it on the hoist, and then we'll weld the bottoms of the frame. And we want to, once we got it on the hoist, we'll take the wheel off and we'll cut this chunk out of the front of the frame right here because it's pretty thin, and we'll just put a new piece of plate there. But yeah, as soon as the welder cools down a little bit, we'll do the last few welds. We just put a few stitches in the sides. She'll be strong. Then we'll set this side down, we'll lift the other side, and rinse and repeat. And then once that's done, it's time to worry about front suspension. And that's where things are going to get a little more difficult. Okay, so Josh had to run out for a little bit, do an errand, so we'll get back to the frame in a minute. But in the meantime, let's see if we can't fit a clutch pedal in this car. So by the look of things, this is about the only place I can mount it, and it does stick out a little bit and it's a little higher. I might be able to tip the front down a little bit, but there's not a lot of room in this dash to fit the master cylinder and everything. So I'm thinking right there, and then it's going to be a bugger to fill, but I think you'll fill it and then you'll bolt it back up, or you'll fill it, you'll bleed it, then you'll bolt it back up. But I should be able to put one bolt through the dash and then build a bracket that comes back to the steering mount here. Yeah, as you can see, it definitely sits higher, but we'll figure something out. Even if I have to like cut and re-weld the pedal, I don't know. We'll figure it out. That is one thing I can knock off the list. It is in there. I have the space for it. All right, so we're just finished welding in that frame rail. I've got most of the front end undone that I can. Should just be the A-arms is all that's left. So what we're going to do, as soon as Josh is done welding that, we're going to set it down. We're going to measure the height of the cross member off the ground with the weight of the frame. Then we're going to set it up. Well, we're going to jack it up, pull the wheels, and set it just as close as we can get to that height. And then roll the front end underneath the new one and see what we got to modify on the frame and what we have to modify on the cross member to try and make it fit. We got the old front suspension out. Got the new one sitting under here. We know what height our frame and our cross member have to be off the ground. And we know what height this one sits at. So it's going to have, these are going to have to sit, the pedestals on it are going to have to sit about 4 inches below the factory frame on this car. So we're going to have to start by cutting out all the old strut towers, or the old shock towers and coil towers, because we're not going to need them anymore. And then we can start setting stuff down where it needs to be, get it figured out, and then we can figure out where we need to add and where we need to plate in. Okay, so we got it sitting roughly ride height, unloaded. We're just going to cut the frame rails completely off. But first we're going to square up a piece of metal to the frame here on the new frame rails, weld it down, and then measure from it forward to where we know the center of our kingpins is. And then we'll also measure from there to the back of the front cross member, so we have both those distances. So when we put in part of the Crown Vic frame rail and then the front back on, we can kind of get it figured out.
We've successfully fixed the frame, and now we've also found it. So
roll this in, I guess, eh? Take some measurements of it. How close are you to center? Well, it's the next night now. It's Monday, and it's after work. It's already almost 7:30. I've been here for about 2 hours. I've been knocking out brake lines and just kind of organizing stuff and getting plans here. So I'm not sure where we cut off last night in the videos, but we're going to shorten the original frame even more, and we're going to add some tubing to connect at the right lengths and the right heights, and then we're going to essentially fish plate it all in, or plate it all in with some sheet metal after. But I pulled all the crap out of the inside of the frame. the factory Crown Vic frame rails, they had like molded plastic with zert nuts in it, and it was like glued in with kind of like a foamy like glue that kind of turned into rock. So I kind of chipped it all out of there and broke it out. So I cleaned out the rails so they're ready to either be cut or changed however we need. And as soon as Josh gets a sec to come out here, he's just dealing with kids. We're gonna kind of figure out where we got to do our cut so we can start getting stuff in position. So now it's Tuesday, after work of course. Back out at Josh's. He's still at work, he's not home yet, but I decided I was going to do some of the finish welding on the front end here, because we just had it tacked together. So I kind of welded everything I could weld. Now we're going to have to do some cuts, bend some metal, weld it tight, and then we're going to plate the whole thing. I got some plate today. So I'm not saying I'm a good welder, but these welds compared to even a year ago, there's no comparison. Like, I'm almost proud of these. Well, I am proud of these, but like, they're almost good. They're definitely strong, but they're almost good. Not as nice as Josh's, but I'm working on it. So I'm going to start doing a little bit of measuring here and kind of figure out where I need to cut the frame horns for the Galaxie on the front and where I need to cut the Crown Vic front end here to try and fit things together. And then when Josh gets here, we'll actually start doing it, because I got to double check everything with him, because he actually knows what he's doing. He actually went to school for frame repair, so he knows the tolerances. But I got to say, I'm really happy with this so far. If we can get this all plated in here and get these front frame horns done, and then a little bit of repair at the back of the frame this week, then we're on track with where I want to be. Because I was starting to stress. I mean, we are less than 2 months away from Miles of Mayhem now, and the body hasn't even touched the frame. And we don't even have an engine mount situation figured out at this point. We don't know if we're using part of the old cross member, or I have some generic mounts, or what we're gonna do. And then we gotta deal with headers. I gotta switch out an oil pan, which I gotta go pull off of a truck. I'm still waiting on a flywheel. We still got to make sure the transmission fits under the cab. We know we're going to have to do at least one hole, but how much of the tunnel do we have to cut? So it's all things like this that I'm stressing, because even though like the frame was the major thing, especially putting the Crown Vic front suspension under it, we are by no means on the home stretch. And I'd love to have it on the road for mid to end of June, so that I can get 3-4 weeks at least of drive time on this thing to work out some of the kinks and really just to get to know the car. So I'll shut the camera off here and I'll get to doing some measuring, and we'll see what we can figure out. So first of all, I cut the 2 bolts that were left holding the bumper on. They were like captive nuts, little square nuts inside tin washers that retained them. And of course they were broken. So I cut those off and I separated the frame horns from the bumper. And then I cut off the cross member section that was left off of it, and I just cut it pretty close to flush even with the front of the cross member. Then I did some measuring, and it looks like when I cut these frame horns, I'll be able to just slide my front frame horns into here, weld it, and then plate it in. So this is, if I was going to cut them, like butt weld them, it would have been right here was where my mark was. And that's even with this mark right here on the cross member. So I laid a piece of duct tape and then cut on the opposite side of the duct tape just to give myself some room to slide it in and out. Or if I have to shorten it a little, I can. I just didn't want to go too far. So of course I got this side cut off, and now I'm going to get this one cut. These frame rails are slightly narrower, and by slightly I mean about 1/2 3/4 of an inch overall, maybe 1 inch, but they're a little too narrow to just slide inside here. So I kind of got to wait till Josh gets here, because what I'd like to do is cut these and open them. I know if I could slide this in, tack stuff, and then I can plate it in and finish it. But before I do anything like that, I better check with the boss. Well, I got ambitious and I tried to do it all myself here. So of course the frame rails, as you can see, don't match at all, but that's okay. We're just going to plate them all in. But I got it all straight, as long as these bolts were straight. But we are at 0.0 degrees, and starting at 0 at the back, 0.1 degree off there, 0 on the front axle, and 0 at the front of the frame. So the entire frame, as it sits right here, has 0.1 degree of flex in it total. And honestly, if I took the vise off the frame, it would probably go back to 0, because we had it sitting there last night to hold things straight for us.
Well, for liability's sake, nothing. We're not doing anything. But for the people that just want to see how it's done and not how we might die, we're just going to mesh this piece of frame over this one, cut this one off flush, and then use whatever's on the bottom to beef up this. It'll basically be a gusset down here. And then we're basically just making 2 frames into one. And nobody will ever look at it again.
I hope so.
And it's going to look good, and it's going to function, and we're not going to die.
Yeah. So as you can see with the flashlight, that's actually looking really good. So if we can do the same on this side, and then fill this on the bottom, and then we can lift the frame up and do all our bottom welds, the front horns will be done. Yeah, we gotta plate all in at the back here, and then make the rear mounts for the back side of the control arms. But I'm happy with this. Like, we've got probably another night or 2 of framework, and then we can start worrying about mounting engine transmission and figuring that out. But it's 10 o'clock, so we're gonna call it a night. Okay, so it's Wednesday night now after work. It's 5:30. I figured I should catch you guys up now that it's light out and you can actually see what we've done. Because to me, it looks so much better now that we've started capping in even just this front section. Like, it totally changes how the frame looks, makes it look a lot more polished. And honestly, it makes it look safer. So I'll bring you over here and I'll show you how this looks, and then I'm going to get started on preparing parts, or preparing pieces of steel for the other side so we can get it kind of similar. And once we're done that, hopefully Josh will be here by that point. He can keep welding and I'll keep cutting up more plating to do the center section. And then once that's done, we may or may not change some plating in the old torque boxes here. All right, well, I was really hoping to get the frame done in this video for you guys, but it's been a lot of little screwing around, and I know it's not the best looking yet, but the plan is to hopefully get it done this weekend. Today, it's Friday night. I've been here every day this week since Sunday. We didn't do anything last night. We just had supper and a visit, kind of relaxed, because it was 34 degrees yesterday, 33 degrees. So we were too hot to be working on that yesterday. So anyway, we'll call this the end of the video. I don't think I'll film too much framework in the next video. Maybe a couple little things, like when we fix the back half of the frame and when it's all done, what it's going to look like. Tonight the plan is we got to go pick up a truck because it's got the flywheel, the oil pan, and the pickup tube I need. So the plan is to go pick that up, and I'll probably drop it off in town. And tomorrow I'll probably get the engine out of it so I can get everything I need. Final fit the flywheel to my engine and make sure that my slave has the proper squish to it, make sure everything's good there. I don't know, we'll see what we have to mess around with. And if that's all good, then I'll get the flywheel ground next week, but we can bring the engine and transmission out, and we can get the engine and transmission in the frame and figure out, probably build ourselves some new engine mounts. I got some generic, well, they're LS style ones. We should be able to fit them onto this frame. So make sure to catch us in the next video, and we'll see if we can't get this really close to having the body back on it, or at least get the body on it. Thanks for watching, guys. Follow me on Instagram. It's @BarkleyBuilt. See you later.